today we have a very special guest, and she is speaker, author, and entrepreneur Sandra Champlain. And Sandra discovered that she had a gift to communicate with beings who had passed on. After this breakthrough, she realized deeply in her heart that she no longer needed to fear death. Since that time, Sandra has courageously shared her journey with others. She has gathered the evidence, stories, and experiences that can convince anyone, including a skeptic like herself, that we don't die. Her goal is to help people know within themselves that their own souls are eternal and that their deceased loved ones are in heaven loving them. In January of 2013, We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death was published. Sandra's book has become a #1 bestseller in the United States and Canada and has been rated one of the top grief and motivational books on Amazon. I had the pleasure to read the book, and I love every page of it. It's one of the most beautiful books I've read. So this is why I'm so excited to have Sandra here today. Welcome, Sandra.
Cloris, thank you so much. And I just want to tell you I love your opening song, and it just touched my heart that we are magnificent. And if we can cause people to feel that and remember that within this half hour together, I mean, what a gift. So thank you for all you do. And we are magnificent, each and every one of us.
That is correct. Yeah, thank you so much. It's wonderful to have you here. And well, I'd like to just give people a quick overview of what you've done, especially how you became so interested in finding evidence of the afterlife.
Sure. I started years ago, and it was 1996, if I had to put my finger on a year, that I just I had a huge fear of dying. I couldn't rest at night. My mind was always preoccupied with what happens after we die. Not really what happens after we die, but what happens after I die. It was a very personal fear that I didn't know if Sandra went on, if this was the end of me. My life wasn't going great. I had a series of breakups and relationships. Job wasn't great. Failure, I would say, and just not happy. And I just couldn't rest with not knowing if there's life after death or not. And truthfully, I was raised Catholic, and in our religion, we believe in heaven. We have faith, right? And all that is good, but just having faith without any hard evidence didn't soothe my fears. So very, very secretly, I just went on this expedition in my part-time to see if there's any real information out there that life after death exists. And while I found that information and I rested my fears, shame on me for it being 8 years after I found it all before I actually went public and told people about it. And the truth is I'm somebody who likes people to like me, and I thought people would think I'm a lunatic if I shared what I found out. Because, of course, a lot of people think people that believe in mediums and psychics and those kind of people are crazy. But my dad passed away just 4 years ago. May 11th, 4 years ago, and I uncovered some things about grief that by sharing it, what I learned about grief with people ended up preventing suicides, helping heal people through grief, and when all that happened, Cloris, I realized that I have some heavy-duty tools that can help people, and how do I get it to the most amount of people? Well, it's not about writing a grief book, because many people grieving aren't looking for that, but it's coming clean, being courageous, and sharing. I'm not the only human being with a fear of dying, and I know when we lose a loved one, we worry, are they still around? And if I could be courageous and have the book We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death, share everything I know, include a chapter on grief, and then the rest is how to, like you say, have a magnificent life while we're here. I took the risk, and I thought people would think I was crazy, and just the opposite has happened. People have really embraced it, and Yeah, and it's done very well on the bestseller list and all that. But I mean, that's by sheer fact of people like it and they're sharing it. So I feel very honored and blessed to be the one with this
Yeah.
message.
But I understand why, because as you said, it's not a book about grief, even though you touch on it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more to it. It's about, understanding what's beyond this life and how we can make our time on earth as best as possible. What can we do to, as you say at the end, 10 daily habits to supercharge your life,
Right.
because we got to make the best out of it. So I think that's why it makes the book so compelling, because even if we're not going through a loss right now, or if we're not that afraid of death, we can use all the other portions of the book to make our life great.
Yeah, there's a woman that had read the book, and she just, in the first chapter, she realized what her life purpose was. There's a race car driver that bought a copy of the book just to support me because I knew him, but he says, not really my topic. Don't be offended if I don't read it. And I said, I won't be. And he read it, and he said it's the best book he's ever read. He says the most motivating. He says it's about, in his words, living life in the driver's seat and having a life worth living. And there's so much more than the title or grief. And, I love your word magnificent because so many people depart this life looking back with regrets and what they did and they didn't do or did say or they didn't say. And most people die, have their last moments with regrets. And what would it be like from no matter how old you are right now till the last moment we close our eyes, and I do believe we open them somewhere else in the hereafter, but having that time really be magnificent relationships, magnificent, going after your dreams, being courageous. And I know it's not all going to be easy and fun, and it's going to be hard a lot of times, but I think that's part of life.
That is right, Sandra. And I was just thinking of a book that was recently released by Bronnie Ware, and the book is called Five Regrets of the Dying. And
Yes.
this woman, you're probably familiar with her story, right? She worked with people who were about to die, basically, and she asked what their biggest regrets were. And yes, one of those regrets, I think it was the top one, it was just to have lived a life and following what other people told them to do instead of following their own purpose, what they were called to do. So my question to you is, what do you think the purpose of our life is, and how can people find their purpose if they're not really sure what it is?
Well, a couple of things. One, I don't know if there's a purpose to be found, like it was a predestined, you came here, this is your purpose, and if you don't find it, too bad, you lose. I don't think it's that. I think as human beings, we are given the gift of choice. And I know there's a lot of us that have regrets, like I should have done this, I shouldn't have done this, I should have said this, that kind of thing. And what choice is in that moment, any decision we make is to trust that we made it with all the information we had. We made the best choice possible. So I'll get into what I think the purpose of life is, but I feel very strongly that none of us live with regrets, and you forgive yourself if you have a time in your life that you think you should have done something or you shouldn't have done something. That you in that earlier time in your life made the best decision you knew at that time. And same with the people in your life. So forgiveness. So we get to choose what we say is our purpose in life. And what do I think purpose in life is that if we don't die, first of all, if we're not afraid of dying, we don't have to be afraid of living. We can't, for all intents and purposes, get hurt. Yes, there is physical pain, there is emotional suffering. All that stuff is very, very real. But like I said, those moments that our body dies and we're over, that personality of ours is going to keep existing. That you that loves to laugh, that you that loves to learn, that you that loves to love and play, that you will go on. So by not fearing living, we can take some more courageous steps and go after our dreams and things. All that being said, our time on earth is very short. I think when we pass, we go to a place much like our dream world. I think we've all had the experience of being in a dream, and it seems so darn real. And then we wake up and we're like, oh my gosh, that was just a dream. Well, what they say, and this is all the studies that I've done and all the different modalities, that when our body dies and our eyes wake up and we are somewhere else, it'll make this life here, being human on Earth, seem like just a dream. It's a very, very real place. So our life here, we have a body, which I think we might have like an etheric body in the hereafter. I don't know for sure because I haven't been there. But from what I know, there's a huge difference in if we look at a sunrise through our eyes, our human eyes, versus if we have a memory of the sunrise, or if there's a beautiful piece of music that you love the song and you hear it on the radio. Oh, I mean, you can just soak up every word. Now, if you try to remember that song, well, it's still good, but you don't have it all right. You may not remember the words. Or how many of us like chocolate? I mean, what is it like to have a piece of chocolate on your tongue and really savor the flavor? And what's the difference now if you just have the memory of chocolate? Different. So I think, this is my own belief, that here on Earth is where we get the five senses with our body. I think we come here to learn. I think life is an education for our soul. And here on Earth, yes, we learn. There's emotions, good, bad, and indifferent. We grow as a human being. We learn to love. We learn to be giving. We learn forgiveness. I think any one of us, I'm 48 years old now. If I were to look back on my life, I have had some miserable, painful things happen to me. I've also had some wonderful things happen and some successes and some failures. And looking back on all of those, Cloris, it's like all of those things had to happen for me to be where I am right now. Even my dad dying, with so much suffering from cancer 4 years ago, and everything I learned about grief, and I grieved something terrible, all of that took its place for where I am now. And so while it's difficult, and you may be listening to our interview right now and suffering terribly, and I don't know the answers. I really don't have all the answers. I have some instincts and what I think are the answers. But to just trust that somehow whatever we're going through right now is for a purpose, is for learning, is for growth, for where we're going to be in the future, and maybe even for the difference we're going to make. I mean, Cloris, I don't know your whole story, but I'm willing to bet there's a reason that you decided to write your book and to take on making sure people know they're magnificent, same as me, without having the pain of my dad's death and without being on this search from fear to is there life after death. I could never make a difference for another, nor could you. So I've reached tens of thousands of people hoping to make their life a little bit brighter and give themselves hope, and I'm sure you the same. So I hope that answers your question, that life is here to be experienced and to love, to learn, forgiveness, make a difference, all of that.
That's right. Yeah, definitely. And then if we spend our time experiencing regret and shame and guilt, then we cannot really be relaxed enough or open enough to get answers, or to really see the opportunity and those things that seem to be terrible, but as you said, are just chances to learn and to grow into who we are. And it's true, when you look back, that's when you understand why things had to happen a special way.
Right.
Now, that takes me to another topic that I'd like to cover today, and that's the topic of intuition, because you used your intuitive abilities to actually communicate with people who have passed. So many people, first they think, oh, that's not for me, I'm not intuitive, or they just feel like that's not even real. Like some people are really removed from their ability to get intuitive messages. So how can we tap into our intuition? How did you tap into it, and how did you use it to communicate with people who have passed?
That's a great question. First of all, to even approach that, my my subtitle is A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. So I was the last person in the world that would think that I had intuition, or if communicating with deceased was possible, it certainly would never happen to me. Okay, so that was my belief. So the fact that suddenly I am a person that has done that, and I can't say I'm perfect at it, but it leads me to believe that we all have the ability. Quite like playing the piano. Some people are naturally gifted, and they can, they just do great. And then there's others of us that have to just keep practicing and practicing and practicing. Well, we all have the ability, all to say. And there is, I want to just tell everybody that, and we all know this, there's this little voice inside of our head that never stops talking. And when we wake up in the morning, we look in the mirror and maybe we have too many wrinkles or gray hair or we're overweight or I don't know. But we have this little voice that's usually saying negative stuff, this inner critic, and I call it the voice. And I think having this voice is something that is necessary for us to remember, or not remember, I guess, that we're these eternal creatures, that we're here on earth to learn and all that. So by having a voice, we get roped in thinking that this life is it. This is it. There's, living now and having regrets and having fear, and this is what the voice talks us into. But people that, I don't think there's any really mastery of calming the voice, but we hear of people meditating and doing visual imagery and things like that. But if we can take moments, and I call it just being in the present moment, and it may only last 2 or 3 seconds, but keep trying for those 2 or 3 seconds where you don't let the voice talk, or you just let it be. And even if you're driving in a car right now, or if you're sitting on a couch listening to this right now, that you're 100% with us with the words, not paying attention to what the little voice is saying. And it's in those moments, Cloris, that I think this is where the intuition happens. The mediums that I have interviewed and psychics, and also some of the world-famous inventors, people like Einstein and Henry Ford and even Paul McCartney and Tina Turner and Steve Jobs, they all accredit that place when they can quiet their mind is where they have these great aha moments, or these inventions or new songs or things like that appear. And it's also a great place if we are suffering from pain, or if we do need a new idea. When we can quiet that mind, that's where it happens. And so the first time I had ever had this intuitive hit, which is when I realized there is the possibility of life after death, I went to a weekend course, and it was a course on mediumship. And so I quieted my mind, and I connected with the woman across from me in another chair. We were told we were not really doing a medium reading, that we were just going to pretend we were, to use our imagination. So that actually took the pressure off, because I didn't think I was really doing it. And Doreen Virtue was the host of this weekend. She's a famous medium and psychic. And so the instruction was for me to just tell my partner who I saw around her, a few other things than that, but I made up, because I truly, Cloris, thought I was just making this up, that this was a trial run. Saw a man standing behind her. I said, "It's your grandfather on your mom's side. He had a big gap between his front teeth. His name was Jan. He was a fisherman in Denmark. He died of lung cancer," and a few other things, and that he had never told his daughter, which is her mom, that he loved her while he was on Earth, and could she relay the message. And, the thing was to quiet our mind and just to play and to pretend. So I did all that, not expecting to be 100% correct. When I opened my eyes, my partner said her grandfather's name was Jan, and he was a fisherman in Denmark, and he did die of lung cancer, and he never did tell his daughter that he loved her, and all the details were correct. And, what happened there? I quieted my mind, and I pretended. And so often I hear people say, gosh, my grandmother or my husband came to me in my sleep, or those moments just before I fell asleep at night, or when I woke up in the morning, or I was driving in my car. And you know those times that you like zone out and your mind's not really anywhere? Well, all of a sudden you feel their presence. And I say we can all do this, and we can all connect with our loved ones. They are around us. And I don't think 24/7. And Cloris, somebody wrote a funny book called Do Dead People Watch Me in the Shower? And that's always a question, because no, I think when we pass on to the hereafter, there's learning to be done. There's stuff happening, but in just a moment, we can be reconnected with those we love, and just by thought. Does that answer your question?
That is quite the story. So. Yeah, you were telling the story. I got the goosebumps, and I got it too. I got the same reaction when I read it in your book.
Yes.
I think it's something that we all have, and I think the more we do it, the better we become at it. Don't you think?
I do, and I teach people in We Don't Die something called remote viewing, and it is a technique to quiet your mind, and this is not to connect with a deceased loved one. This is to have a magazine in front of you that you've never opened before, or if you have a trusting friend who might want to hide something unusual in a shoebox, whether they're halfway around the world or not, and you play the little game of, if I could see the pictures inside this magazine, what pictures would be in there? If I could see some elements of what's in that shoebox, what would be there? And our mind will throw images in our up in our internal radar screen, and so we just have a notepad and just start writing down what we see. And then what happens is that when the friend opens the shoebox, and they could take a picture of it on their cell phone these days and send it to you, or you start looking in the magazine, those pictures you just saw in your mind's eye that you wrote on the piece of paper, most of them are actually in the magazine or have elements of them in that thing that's in the shoebox. And the reason I include that in We Don't Die is, there's so much information I give on all the different studies that I did, and but there's still that little voice inside all of us that says, yeah, but if I haven't experienced it, I don't believe it's true. To give people an experience of remote viewing is mind-blowing. It is, how in the world did I know what's sitting in a shoebox halfway around the world? Or how do I know what's in that magazine? I couldn't possibly. And it's this feeling, Cloris, that I cannot just be this body if that was possible. And so it brings it all in first full circle, that I can't just be this body. If I can see something halfway around the world, there is a possibility that I don't die. My loved ones have not died, and we're just go to this invisible place to our eyes now, but certainly very, very real.
Yeah, as you said, Sandra, you need to have something tangible that you experience to make it part of your true beliefs. I mean, if somebody could tell you all kinds of stories about, or read books, and yes, you understand the concept, but it's only when you have actually experienced something that it becomes part of you, and you really internalize it. So I see the power in this remote viewing strategy that you recommend, and I definitely encourage everybody to do that. Now, we only have a few minutes left, so with that time, I'd like to maybe elaborate just a little bit more on the evidence that you found of the afterlife, and then, of course, tell people how to find you.
Sure, and if I can, I want to give people the website WeDon'tDie.com, because I can't get to it all in the next 5 minutes. I want to, but you can download the first couple chapters of my book. You can also listen to that grief audio that I have, and bunches of my evidence, even though it is in the book, but there's also some tabs on the website that you can read more of it. But after doing the mediumship class, I'll just throw out a few different things. We all hear of near-death experiences, when people flatline on the operating table and they go to the light. And for the skeptic, it's easy to think that's just a part of the brain shutting down. But Dr. Ken Ring took some experiments with blind people that had near-death experiences. And Cloris, for the very first time in their entire life, when they had that moment of death, that flatlining, they could see. People could accurately see. One woman saw her husband talking to a doctor. He was wearing a green shirt. He bent over to pick up the pen the doctor dropped. I mean, so many details of life that they could see for the very first time, and they've been blind since birth. So that's pretty great. There's Reverend Rita Berkowitz, who is a minister of the Spiritualist Church. She's got a great website called thespiриtartist.com, and she is someone who for the last 30 years is not only a medium who is telling you who your deceased loved ones are, but she's an artist. So she draws pictures of who she sees in her mind's eye, and throughout her website, thespiриtartist.com, is her pictures or her drawings and people as they actually lived. And photographs, mind-blowing. There's something called electronic voice phenomena that's been around for years, and it creeps some people out because what it is, it's recording sound of a fan or sound of a shower or raindrops or something like that, and when you play the recording back, there's actually voices that are heard, and many of us get scared by this because I think whether it's like my Catholic upbringing or there was a horror movie called White Noise out, that there are these scary things and demons can come out. Well, all that's ever come out of these messages are loving messages, lots of I love yous, or sometimes some humor. So it's nice to know we have our sense of humor. And I myself, I mean, this is for another interview because it's a long conversation, but again, you can read it in the first chapter of my book. WeDon'tDie.com, get the first free chapter. But the story really is, I went to prove that it's not possible only to hear voices show up on my tape recorder. And I've done almost 200 recordings with people and tied in with whatever my intuition is getting, and come to find out it's the same person. And, and when we have those moments of believing that our loved ones are around, I mean, our lives shift. People don't grieve as hard. People start, like I said, not having the fear of living and live more courageously and more loving and being more accepting in things. I'm looking at my watch, so I'm being careful of the time, but I do want to encourage people to use my website and check it all out because there's so much more. Oh, there's just never enough time on a radio show.
I was thinking, yeah, we could talk for a few hours, I think, and still we would have more stuff to say about this. I think it's a topic that fascinates everybody because we all realize that, we're not going to live forever, and especially when we lose someone we love, we really want to know if are they still with us, like what happens, and I think your message is just so powerful and so beautiful, and that's why you're really reaching out to so many people, Sandra. It's because of that people can resonate with you. So I invite everybody to go to WeDon'tDie.com to read Sandra's book, a beautiful book. Again, it's just about being the best you can be and making the best out of your life. Anything else you'd like to say?
Well, just we don't have to see something to believe it's real. Not a single one of us can see how our wireless phones connect or the wireless internet. We can't see it around us, and it is very much real. And I say heaven or the hereafter exists in that same place. And so your loved ones who you loved and lost, you can keep talking to them. They're around. You can look for signs. Whether you get them or not, just trust that they're there and, live your life. Live it to the fullest.